Hi, everybody. This is Ronelle Delmont. It's been a long time since I've made a video. Well, today is November 27th, and yesterday was Richard Hauptmann's 139th birthday. He was born in 1895, and he would have been 139 if he hadn't been electrocuted in New Jersey's electric chair. Behind me, you can see a picture of it. In 1936, he was 41 years old when he was electrocuted by the state of New Jersey, which to this very day, as probably many of you know from reading Google or wherever you get your information about this case, that the state of New Jersey is continually stonewalling any effort for lawyers and other people interested in the case from getting the nursery note envelopes tested for the DNA. Whoever licked them had something to do with the disappearance and probable death of Charles Lindbergh's baby. This picture of Hauptmann that you're looking at behind me is the cover of a Liberty magazine article called "Will Lindbergh Save Hauptmann?" And you can see by the way this is drawn, he's meant to look sleazy, shady, subversive, whatever evil you want to attribute to this fellow. He should never have been executed. I'll never believe that he actually killed the baby or had anything to do with the crime. I'm one of the last people probably that refuses to believe he went into his attic and got a plank out of the floor and put it into a ladder that he brought to New Jersey in the middle of the night while there are 5 people and a dog walking around in the house with the lights all lit. And he happened to know which room, which window was a nursery. He happened to know everything. And if you want to believe it was an inside job, go right ahead, because that's what everybody did believe. But nobody wanted to believe that Charles Lindbergh might have had something to do with it. At least they didn't express it in newspaper articles or out loud, because Lindbergh was a powerful person and Richard Hauptmann was chopped liver. So I'm here to tell you about his birthday yesterday, which led me to go to my cell phone. And I must tell everybody, if I haven't mentioned it before, that there's a very wonderful way to learn about this case. You don't need me to tell you anything. You don't have to read any books. Just read the transcript of his trial, and you'll get the picture of how he was framed. And I'm explaining this because I'm not sure I've ever done this before. On your cell phone, there's a thing called Amazon. I think you heard of that. And they've got a program called Kindle. For very little money, a couple of dollars, you can buy each of the 3 trial transcript books. It's called State v. Hauptmann, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Because it was his birthday yesterday, I got myself to search. Now, the thing about why I'm recommending the Kindle version to you rather than any other format, you can search these 3 volumes. I have searched for words over and over. Window, you can put in the word window and see during the trial, which took place from January to February in 1935. You can search for window, you can search for sleeping suit, any kind of a word that might lead you to understand better, because it's an enormous 3 volumes. So anyway, I read the part of dealing with the lady at the Sheridan Theater. I used to live on Jane and Hudson, a block or 2 away from that theater. In the 60s, I went there many times. It was dingy and it's a very dingy and dark theater. I didn't enjoy going there. There was something about it that was creepy. I don't know what, but it's on the edge of Greenwich Village near the Hudson River. So during the trial, the defense called in a witness to rebut Cecilia Barr. I think you heard of her. She was a lady in the ticket booth who claimed that she recognized Richard Hauptmann from having handed her I think it was a $5 or a $10 note that was folded up 8 times. She had to unfold it in order to see what it was and give him a ticket for that evening. And what evening was it? What evening do you go to the movies in a dark, dingy corner of Greenwich Village that takes, I don't know, back in 1933, when this is said to have happened, that she claimed it happened back in 1933, it must have taken a person from the Bronx maybe an hour and a half to get to that place. I happen to live near it, a few blocks away. But if you had to take a train, you'd never go to that theater, not in a million years. It's out of the way. It's on the edge of the Hudson River. There are a million other Loews places to go to, and certainly Richard Hauptmann had access to that gorgeous Loews concourse. It's a magnificent theater right on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. But no, he had to go in the middle of the night, 9:30. She claimed the Cecilia Barr, the ticket lady at the booth at the dingy Sheridan Theater on the edge of nowhere, because in those days the West Village was nowhere. When I lived there, it was nowhere. They built a building called the Cezanne, and I moved in, the edge of nowhere. And that's where Richard Hauptmann is said to have gone on his birthday, November 26, 1933. And that was her testimony. And if you read, the reason I'm bringing this up is not because it's so ridiculous to think that a man with a family and a lot of friends went on his, let's see, 33, so he would have been 38. On his 38th birthday, he went all alone to the edge of Greenwich Village, the Hudson River, to watch some sort of a movie all by himself on his birthday. Really? That's what Cecilia Barr gave testimony to at Flemington. So Riley, Pope, and Fisher brought in a witness to rebut Cecilia Barr. It's all in this cell phone. I'm at the dentist, I'm at the doctor, I read wherever I am, the supermarket, my car, I'm constantly reading this transcript because it's unbelievable. You do not have to read Kennedy, Bain, anybody who wrote a book. You don't have to, you should read those books. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you don't have to read any of them to realize that he was framed or that he didn't get a fair trial, at least. You might want to think he's guilty, like some people do, that they framed a guilty man. Okay, but you got to read this trial to understand what happened. So I'm giving you an example. Out of curiosity about the night of his birthday, I just reread the testimony of the rebuttal witness who, forgive me, I'm old already, I forgot the guy's name, doesn't matter. He lived on West 15th Street, right near the Sheridan Theater. And he was going to be a witness to rebut Cecilia Barr's claim that she recognized one man one night, well, a year ago, because this was supposed to be November 33, and he was caught September 34. So it's about 10 months later, she claimed, whenever she came forward, I don't know if it was 10 months or a year later, but she claimed that she knew him from that one night, which happened to be his birthday. She didn't know that, of course, but she gave her testimony, and the defense brought in this fellow from West 15th Street. And if you see what the judge, Trenchmouth, I call him Trenchmouth, Judge Trenchard, it's unbelievable what they did to railroad this whole trial. Is a farce. You know, if Gilbert and Sullivan were alive at the time, they would have done like they did with Pirates of Penzance and the Mikado. They would have made acute, what were they? They're not operas exactly, but you know what I mean. They would have done a musical farce of this entire trial. So the reason I don't think that he was guilty, you can believe that and still understand that the trial was unjust. A lot of lies were told, and a lot of so getting back to this fellow on West 15th Street, he was put there to explain how this woman, who has seen him so many times because he lives in the neighborhood and goes there all the time, she didn't know who he was. How could she know who Richard Hauptmann was? And that was supposed to be his testimony, but he never got to give it because the trench mouth at the court, Judge Trenchard, kept sustaining David Walentz's objection. The minute Pope, I forget his first name, but the lawyer who was doing the examination of the fellow on West 15th Street, couldn't even get the guy to answer a single question because Walentz kept interrupting I think there were 6 exceptions that he took. These exceptions, I found out, were collected in massive amounts in this trial by the defense because the judge kept siding with the prosecution, which kept interfering with the examination of their witnesses. It's just horrible to read. It'll make you want to throw your cell phone. Sometimes I think I never want to look at my cell phone again because every time I open it, I'm so tempted to go to these transcripts. They're wonderful. You can search for anything. If you get a bug in your head that, oh, well, maybe Betty Gow or Ali Watley, whatever it is you're thinking of, just go to these 3 volumes on your cell phone. They don't cost very much. I don't know if I paid more than $2 or $3 each, and they're massive. So that's what I want to say for Richard Hauptmann's birthday. I'm one of the few people that refuses to believe that the wood matches. There were 2 planks of wood. Louis Bornman, and you can read his testimony of how he took the house in his name. He rented the house and lived there. The defense, one day I'm going to make another video with Lloyd Fisher's complaint. It's many pages long, and it's called what the prosecution did to I forgot the way he worded it, but it's a very long list of things that the prosecution did to sabotage the defense in many ways that are so unethical. And of course, things were different back then. Discovery was not required. Discovery is where the prosecution has to, by law, turn over exculpatory information they may have about the defendant, which David Walentz never had to do. And I'll read that in another video. I do not know how to edit any of these. So many of my videos have mistakes in them or pieces that I would rather cut out. I just don't know. I've gone to the YouTube channel tutorial many times, figure out how to edit these videos, and I don't know how. So I don't want to make them very long, but I thought I would also tell you something else before I hang up on all of you. People have emailed me, and I really appreciate that. They say they miss these videos and they like them, and I'm very happy about that. I love hearing from you. Delmont at Comcast.net. Do not email my website, lindberghkidnappinghoax.com, because there must have been a million by now, more than a million spam phishing emails. I don't even look at that email address. So rdelmont@comcast.net if you want to contact me, or put up a comment. I'll try to answer them. But yes, so the last video I did here many months ago was with Jim Davidson, who wrote that nice book about Curtis and means, and it was great hearing from him. The problem was that the man who wrote the introduction for his books, he had no idea I was going to say what I did, but the man who is his friend evidently was the editor of the Huntington, what's it called? The Huntington newspaper, Huntington Democrat newspaper. Jay Langley is his name, the editor. He's retired now. And he wrote the introduction for Jim Davidson's book. And in my interview with Jim Davidson, I mentioned that it was his friend Jay Langley who was responsible for my website and all of this. I mean, the video channel came out of my website, the forum, everything I've done since 1998. And I created that website by myself with the help of a kid that I met on the street here in Florida. As a 16-year-old boy came to my house and showed me how to do it. I wrote the whole thing in HTML code. You know, I'm not young. I was 80 years old in September. So back in 1998, this was all alien to me. I had no idea. It was a new language I was learning, but it was a lot of fun. So how did it start, and what does it have to do with Jay Langley? Well, when I got interested in this case through the Gregory Algren and Stephen Monier book, I went on the internet, which at my age, I believed this internet was going to free up the entire world. I believed that this new invention called internet, cyberspace, was just the greatest thing for democracy, freedom for all peoples, especially poor people. A Black kid, a little girl in North Carolina now would have access to what Harvard people have access to. When in the world? I grew up at a time on the Lower East Side where just going to a public library was like hitting the jackpot. When I was 4, I had a library card, and we were so poor in a tenement area of the Lower East Side that when I went to the library and they gave me a card, I could take out all the books I wanted. I just thought I was the luckiest kid in the world to have free access to all these books. But you had to put on clothes and a coat and galoshes to go to the library. And now there's a thing called the internet where information came to you in your bedroom. Think of all the little children who are poor, who can't afford to go to big schools or have access to elite education. I just thought the internet was the greatest thing in the world, and it was going to make the whole world free. And it didn't, because now there's terrible suppression. I'll talk about it at another time. I think I've made a video about Julian Assange, who is my hero. And luckily he's alive and out of prison. Maybe people don't follow his case, but I followed everything about it. And it drove me crazy because he was guilty of journalism. That's what he was in prison for, conducting journalism. So what does all this have to do with Hauptmann over here? I hate this picture because it's purposely done in a way to make him look like a baby killer. So what's it all got to do with anything? Journalism, Julian Assange, and my life on the Lower East Side. Because when I got involved reading the book by Gregory Algren and Stephen Monier, I went looking on the internet. And I found only one website. I couldn't believe it. There was a person who believed Hauptmann was innocent. And her name was Tanya Gensemer, Genscmer. I've never met her. I don't even know where she is. She's probably a grandmother by now because this was in 1998. And she was 16 in a high school somewhere in Pennsylvania for homework assignment or some project. She created a website based on, I think at the time it was the Kennedy book, which had been published in the 1980s. I think it was the Kennedy book that influenced her as a teenage student. I guess it was a journalism class or a creative writing class, I don't know. But she created the website that I have. And the reason I have her website, and I've never changed the logo, even though I would never have put the name Bruno up there. That was never his name, you know. Some of you already know his name was Richard. Even Anna, his wife, had no idea that his name had been Bruno. It was a baptismal name that he never used. At the archive in New Jersey, they even have his, I think his second or third grade notebook, and the label on it says Richard Hauptmann. It doesn't say Bruno Richard Hauptmann. That was not his name in America, nor was it in Germany. It was a baptismal name, ceremonial name. He never used it. And Tanya Gensemer created a website called Bruno Richard Hauptmann. I forgot the title. It's what happens when you get to be 80. I forgot how she worded it. Well, you could look up my website and see the way, because that's the original, the picture and everything. It's her. It's this 16-year-old girl who was hounded by Jay Langley. Now you see where I'm going with this. I didn't expect to tell Jim Davidson when I interviewed him the truth about how I got my website, but Jay Langley wrote the introduction to both of his books, and I felt that I had to explain why I have my website. It's really funny. I didn't mean to be arrogant or but it's just interesting. It's mind-blowing in a way, you know, what goes around comes around. And it's because of Jay Langley that all of this has happened to me, that I created a website with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I don't even know how many hundreds of documents are up there because I kept sticking things up. I got crazy with that language, HTML. And I'm writing a book myself, and sometimes I go looking for stuff and it's on my own website. So Jay Langley, what is the meaning of all this? Jay Langley hounded Tanya Gensemer. She was the only person who thought to put a website. In 1998, there was no mention of Hauptmann being innocent anywhere. And she made that as a high school project. And then Jay Langley comes along and threatens her because she used photographs, evidently, from the Hunterdon Democrat, which she, I believe, if my memory is correct, I believe she gave citations where she got the photographs. But he evidently called she told me, because I found her phone number and I called her up in Pennsylvania because she kept telling me she had to take it down. She's going to take it down. Her father is angry at her. The school is angry at her because the man at the newspaper called up the school, and she's terrified. She was scared. She's 16 years old. She doesn't want to be in trouble. And I know that feeling because when I was 16, Thomas Jefferson High School in Brooklyn, where I grew up, partly after the Lower East Side, we moved to Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I went to a wonderful high school, Thomas Jefferson. Howard Zinn was a graduate of that school, Steve Lawrence, Danny Kaye, and unfortunately, so was Lloyd Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs. He was my neighbor in a housing project. I'm writing a memoir, so you forgive me for all of this. Yeah, so I was in high school. people who were starting a local newspaper in Brownsville went to the school and asked for advice who they can have as a teenage editorialist for their newspaper. I don't remember who they were. I don't remember the name of the newspaper. I just remember writing a story for them, and they fired me immediately because my story was about, it was supposed to be an editorial column regarding teenagers in Brownsville, East New York and Brownsville. And I wrote an article. I remember what it was about, but I don't have a copy of it. I wrote an article criticizing my fellow teenagers for wanting to look alike. When I would walk into the school yard every morning, everybody looked the same. They're all wearing the same kind of style, the same, I don't know. I've always had an objection to people not thinking for themselves and wanting to look like everybody else. I don't know why. There's nothing, I guess it's a requirement of being human, belonging to a group and fitting in and all that. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know a thing about that, but it drove me crazy as a teenager that everybody wanted to do what everybody did. And I guess I was in some ways just like them, and it was probably hypocritical what I wrote. I don't know. I just know they fired me for my first article. They didn't like it. It wasn't, it's not that it wasn't literary, it was just the wrong thing to say. So I guess 80 years I've been this way, having the wrong thing to say all the time. And about Hauptmann, I'm certainly wrong. In the eyes of many, many, many people, I'm crazy for continuing to believe that he never went in his attic. And Mr. Carrega, I love the guy. He's sweet, he's nice. He doesn't mean, I'm sure he doesn't have bad intentions. None of these people, they want the truth. That's what they say. And Mr. Carrega, it's on my website. You can read it. It's a 40-page for if you have trouble sleeping. A lot of these things are hard to read. Mr. Ken Carrega, Kel Carregas, Keraga. Look him up on my website. He's got a 40 or 50-page analysis of why the two planks of wood, the piece from the attic and the piece from the ladder, why they are absolutely from the same tree. The problem is I'll never believe that. There's a 1¼ inch gap. And neither of these two planks are the same width. They have no, if you take away the patch from the middle of what the police did was put a patch in between, an 1¼ inch patch with lines drawn to show you that they match. But and the jury was supposed to use their imagination. You're supposed to use your imagination. I'm sorry. A guy who's a professional carpenter with a garage across the street doesn't remove all the clothes from a tiny closet. I measured that closet. It's the same width and length as my kitchen drawer. The measurement is in the, you could find the measurement for the closet in the testimony, the volumes. And I went with a tape measure and I measured my kitchen drawer. Now, think about fitting into your kitchen drawer. That's what that closet is. And Richard Hauptmann was going to take all the clothes out from the shelves, and he was going to climb on the cleats of the wall and get into an attic to remove a plank of wood that was nailed down with spikes. The nails look like spikes to me. Okay, if you want to believe fairy tales, go ahead, but strange things have happened, it's true. So I don't believe it. We're getting back to Gensemer, to Tanya Gensemer. I must finish that story because I was fired. I know what it feels like to be a teenager in trouble with things that you write and complaints that you may have, whatever. She felt she was in, I begged her, please, please do not take this down. You're the only one who's skeptical about that trial, who's made a website. Please, please don't take it down. And she did. But a couple of days later, I got them in the mail. Those hard, I still have them somewhere. They're square, they're not floppy disks. They were hard plastic you stick them in a drive, and all this gobbledygook came up. I found a kid in my neighborhood. I paid him. He came here and helped me figure out what is HTML. And the rest, I went nuts. I didn't have a life. I just kept, I thought it was, like I say, the internet to me at my age, because I remember wanting to be smart when I was a kid. I wanted to learn languages early on when I was a kid. I wanted to read everything in the world and be as smart as all the grown-ups around me. They were all so smart, and I wanted to be just like them. And I know what it feels like not to be able to, well, I didn't really want to go to Harvard anyway, but some poor little Black girl in North Carolina, I'm thinking, these children who couldn't even go to white schools, because I remember that period. Now, poor Orville Forbes must be rolling around in his grave, because not only can he not stop Black children from getting into Little Rock, was it Little Rock? Yeah, Orville Forbes at Little Rock. Not only could he not stop them, but they're going to be more educated than a lot of white kids. Yeah, I just love the internet. I think it's the greatest, but what's happening now, and that's another story. Very, very bad. The powers that be are trying to control everything through the internet, and you just have to keep on searching for the truth. And yeah, so, okay, I'm getting lost here in my head. Tanya Gensemer gave me her website, disappeared, never heard from her again, and I created it. And this is a very, very important thing to me, that teenagers, because of what I went through with that, not that it bothered me so much, I didn't care, I really didn't care at the time. But when this happened to Tanya Gensemer, and she was, what's the word? I don't want to say persecuted, but she was hounded. Maybe that's not the correct word either, but maybe Jay Langley was nicer than I thought. I don't know. She was terrified of him. And that's the fellow that wrote the introductions to Jim Davidson's books. But he's retired from the Hunterdon Democrat now. Now, the Hunterdon Democrat was David Wilentz was a very popular fellow in the Hunterdon Democrat. He was the Pope of Perth Amboy, I think they called him. He was, from this trial, he became very powerful politically. Okay, so that's, I don't know how to edit these, so I better say goodbye. Hauptmann is gone, but this trial, if you read it, you'll understand why we have to still keep asking questions about his guilt. And of course, I'm against the death penalty for a very important reason, and I hope you understand why. Even if he was guilty of something, anything, that execution was wrong. I don't believe that anybody should be executed, because not that I'm a bleeding heart and that I love criminals or care so much after they've done horrific things. I do feel for the victims. The problem is, you and I are all potential victims of wrongful, oh, that's what she called it, Bruno Richard Hauptmann, wrongful execution. I don't even look at my own website. I see it all the time. I don't remember what it's called. Lindbergh kidnapping hoax, but she gave it a title, wrongful death, I think. Well, whatever. That's the problem with the death penalty. It could be anybody that gets entrapped, not because the legal system is always is always unjust. In this case, it was. They were just looking to end it. The hero of the nation lost his son, and he had to be pleased with an outcome that would please him. There are a million reasons why they did what they did, and not everybody was evil. They just followed orders, like they did at Nuremberg. We just followed orders. Everyone in the Depression was afraid to lose their job. How would they feed their families? And so the death penalty is dangerous to you and me, not just to criminals who deserve to be locked up for the rest of their lives, but execution is not the way to go. We're all in danger of being wrongfully accused. That memory, like Cecile Barr, I'm sure she didn't remember anything. She just made it up because there was a reward announced, and I don't know how much she got, if she got anything. Okay, I'm hanging up because I don't know how to edit, and I'll be back talking about the book that I'm writing, because if I never get to write it, I've got to tell you about it before it's published. It's almost finished, but world events have caused me to be distracted from writing this book. I've been devastated by October 7th. That'll be another story. And oh yes, one more thing. A lot of people have commented to me over the years that, isn't it nice of you, being Jewish, that you're defending so many years, you're defending a German person, and that you're Jewish, this is very nice of you. And people, or they say things, commenting about the fact that I'm Jewish and I'm defending a German from the 1930s yet. Well, I'm here to tell you that it wouldn't matter to me if Richard Hauptmann was from Zimbabwe or Venezuela or the North Pole, or I don't care where he was from. I didn't choose this case because he was German and I'm Jewish. It had nothing to do with that. It wouldn't have mattered to me. But it is interesting. And I often wonder sometimes what he thought of Nazi Germany and Hitler, but we can't know. His son is alive. Manfred is probably 90 by now, and I don't ever communicate with him. And he's made it very plain that he has no interest in speaking with anybody. So I don't ask any questions about that, because justice is blind. All the statues in front of the courthouses, the lady with the scales, she's holding a pair of scales, balance. She's also blindfolded because she's not supposed to know or care the religion, the color, the age, or as long as you're human, she's not supposed to be judging you, but that's not the way it often goes, and we know that. Okay, anything else? I'm losing my mind over this. Okay, I gotta go back to writing my book. Bye. Now I have to find out where the record button is. Is it here? I hope I was recording. Oh. No. They've changed the Zoom. Oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, goodbye, everybody.